The August sun beat down on Downieville, California, with a merciless fury that made the very air shimmer and dance above the dusty streets. And Katherine Nolan knew she should have stopped hauling water an hour ago when her vision first started to blur at the edges. It was 1872, and the gold rush days had faded into memory, leaving behind a struggling mountain town where everyone worked themselves to the bone just to survive. Katherine had been up since before dawn, tending to the boarding house she ran with her younger sister Emma. The well was a good 100 yards from the back door, and she had made the trip 17 times already that morning, each bucket feeling heavier than the last as the temperature climbed past anything reasonable for the Sierra Nevada foothills. Her cotton dress clung to her back, soaked through with sweat despite the early hour. The miners staying at her boarding house needed water for washing, drinking, cooking. They paid their $3 a week, and she made sure they got their money's worth. At 23 years old, Katherine had been running this establishment for 2 years since her father passed from pneumonia, and she had never missed a day of work, never failed to provide what was promised. The wooden bucket felt like it weighed 100 pounds as she bent to lower it into the well one more time. The rope burned against her palms, already raw from the morning's work. She could hear Emma inside, preparing breakfast for the 6 boarders currently residing with them. Her sister's voice drifted through the open window, cheerful and light, unaware that Katherine's knees had started to buckle. The bucket hit water with a distant splash. Katherine gripped the rough wooden frame of the well, trying to steady herself as she began hauling the rope back up, hand over hand. The world tilted sideways, then righted itself. She blinked hard, trying to clear the gray fog creeping into the edges of her vision. Just one more bucket. Just one more trip to the kitchen. Then she could rest, but her body had other plans. The rope slipped from her fingers as her knees gave out completely. She heard the bucket crash back down into the well's depths, and then the ground rushed up to meet her. The last thing she registered was the shocking heat of the sun-baked earth against her cheek, before everything went black. She did not hear the sound of horse hooves approaching, or the startled oath that came from the rider who spotted her crumpled form beside the well. Kieran Dawson had only been passing through Downieville, heading north to check on some mining claims his brother had purchased, when he caught sight of the woman lying motionless in the dirt. He was off his horse before he could think twice about it, his boots hitting the ground hard as he ran toward her. Kieran had spent the last 5 years working cattle drives from Texas to Montana, and he had seen heat exhaustion claim more than one cowhand who pushed themselves too hard under the unforgiving sun. This woman, with her dark blonde hair escaping from its pins and her face flushed an alarming shade of red, showed all the signs. Miss, can you hear me?" He knelt beside her, his rough hand gentle as he touched her shoulder. No response. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, her skin burning hot to the touch. Kieran looked around quickly, spotting the boarding house just across the yard. Without hesitation, he slipped one arm under her knees and the other behind her back, lifting her as carefully as he could. She was lighter than he expected, probably not eating enough while working herself to exhaustion. Her head lolled against his shoulder as he carried her toward the house, moving as quickly as he dared. The back door stood open, and he could hear someone moving around inside. "Hello. I need help here." His voice carried the authority of someone used to being heard over thundering cattle and howling winds. A younger woman, maybe 18 or 19, appeared in the doorway. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw her sister hanging limp in the stranger's arms. Katherine. "Oh God, what happened?" Found her collapsed by the well. "Heat exhaustion, I reckon. I need to get her cooled down fast. Where can I lay her?" Emma did not waste time with questions. "This way, quickly." She led him through the kitchen and into a small bedroom off the main hallway. The room was simple but clean, with an iron frame bed covered in a white quilt. Kieran laid Katherine down as gently as possible, noting how her eyelids fluttered but did not open. "I need cold water, clean cloths, and if you have any ice, bring that too," he said, already moving to open the window wider to get any hint of a breeze into the stifling room. "We need to bring her temperature down." Emma nodded and disappeared. Kieran turned back to Katherine, his experienced hands moving to unbutton the high collar of her dress. He stopped himself, propriety warring with necessity, then compromised by loosening just the top 2 buttons to help her breathe easier. He pulled off her boots, remembering how cowboys on the trail would strip down to their undershirts when the heat got bad. Emma returned with a large basin of water and an armful of cloths. "We have ice in the cellar. I will get it." "Good. Bring as much as you can carry." Kieran soaked one of the cloths in the water and began pressing it against Katherine's forehead, her neck, her wrists. Her skin was so hot it seemed to heat the cloth instantly. He kept working, methodically cooling her pulse points, wringing out the cloth and soaking it again, over and over. Emma came back with a bucket half full of precious ice, chips saved from the winter and stored deep underground. Together, they placed pieces wrapped in cloth against Katherine's neck and wrists. Kieran wet another cloth and draped it across her forehead. How long was she out there? He asked, not taking his eyes off Katherine's face. "Since dawn. She would not listen when I told her I could help with the water." Emma's voice cracked. "She always insists on doing everything herself, says I already work hard enough with the cooking and cleaning." "She is going to be all right," Kieran said with more confidence than he felt. "But she needs rest, and she needs to drink water when she wakes up. Small sips at first." They worked together in tense silence for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Gradually, Katherine's breathing began to slow, becoming deeper and more regular. Some of the alarming flush faded from her cheeks. Kieran felt the tightness in his chest ease slightly. Then her eyelids flickered. She made a small sound, confused and disoriented. "Easy now," Kieran said softly, his hand steady on her shoulder as she tried to sit up. "You need to stay still a bit longer." Katherine's eyes opened fully, a startling shade of green that fixed on him with confusion. "Who are you? What happened? You fainted by the well." "This gentleman brought you inside," Emma explained, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "Oh, Kate, you scared me half to death." Memory seemed to flood back and Katherine closed her eyes briefly. "The water. I did not finish." "The water can wait," Kieran said firmly. "You nearly cooked yourself to death out there. When did you last drink anything?" Katherine opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again, clearly unable to remember. Kieran shook his head, recognizing the stubborn set of her jaw. He had seen that same expression on his own sister's face often enough. "Emma, could you get your sister some water? Cool but not cold. She needs to drink slowly." As Emma hurried out, Katherine tried again to sit up. This time Kieran did not stop her, but he kept a steadying hand near her elbow in case she got dizzy. She moved slowly, swinging her legs over the edge of the bed and taking a moment to breathe deeply. "I am fine now," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You are not fine. You will not be fine for the rest of the day, maybe longer." Kieran pulled over a straight-backed chair and sat down so he was at eye level with her. "What you are is lucky I happened to ride by when I did. Another 15 minutes in that sun and we might be having a very different conversation." Katherine looked at him properly for the first time. He was probably close to her own age, maybe a year or two older, with dark hair that needed a cut and brown eyes that held both kindness and determination. His clothes marked him as a working man, a cowboy by the look of the worn leather vest and the bandana tied around his neck. Dust from the trail covered his boots and the lower part of his trousers. "I need to thank you," she said quietly. "I am Katherine Nolan. This is my boarding house." "Kieran Dawson. And you can thank me by resting for the remainder of the day and drinking plenty of water." He accepted the cup Emma brought back and handed it to Katherine, watching to make sure she sipped slowly. "Your sister mentioned you have been hauling water since dawn." "That is too much work for anyone in this heat." "The boarders need water," Katherine said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "The boarders can help themselves to water, or they can wait until it is cooler. What they do not need is their landlady collapsing from exhaustion." His tone was gentle but firm. "You cannot take care of anyone if you do not take care of yourself first." Emma nodded vigorously. "That is what I keep telling her." Katherine looked between them, clearly not accustomed to being on the receiving end of such concern. Kieran watched emotions flicker across her face, pride warring with the undeniable truth that she had pushed herself too far. Finally, she sighed. "You are right. There is so much to do and it is only Emma and me to do it. Which is why you need to pace yourselves." Kieran stood, picking up the basin to refill it with fresh water. "I was only passing through Downieville, but I reckon I can spare a day to help out around here. Make sure you actually rest like you are supposed to." "I cannot ask you to do that," Katherine protested. "You did not ask." "I am offering." He paused in the doorway, looking back at her with a slight smile. "Besides, you are in no condition to stop me." He left before she could argue further, Emma trailing behind him with a grateful expression. In the kitchen, he found the breakfast she had been preparing still sitting half-finished on the stove. "Show me where things are, and I will help you get this meal finished. Then we can work on that water situation." Emma looked at him like he had descended from heaven itself. "You can cook." "I can make bacon and eggs without burning the place down, which I reckon is all those miners are expecting." He rolled up his sleeves. "On a cattle drive, everyone takes a turn at the chuck wagon eventually." They worked together efficiently, Emma's initial shyness fading as Kieran proved himself useful rather than intrusive. The boarders began appearing as the smell of food drew them from their rooms. They were a rough but decent lot, miners and laborers who paid their rent on time and did not cause trouble. When they asked after Katherine, Kieran explained simply that she had worked too hard in the heat and needed rest. "About time someone made her slow down," one grizzled miner commented. "That girl works harder than 3 men put together." After breakfast, Kieran made several trips to the well himself, refilling the barrels in the kitchen and hauling extra water for washing. The work was not difficult for someone used to 12-hour days in the saddle, and it gave him time to think. He had not planned on stopping in Downieville for more than a night, but something about Katherine Nolan had caught his attention beyond simple concern for her welfare. Maybe it was the stubborn tilt of her chin, even when she was barely conscious. Maybe it was the way she clearly carried the weight of responsibility for keeping this boarding house running despite it being too much for 2 women alone. Or maybe it was simply that when her green eyes had focused on him, something in his chest had tightened in a way he had never felt before. Kieran was not a romantic man by nature. His life had been defined by hard work and constant movement, following cattle herds and taking jobs wherever they led. He had seen parts of the country most people only dreamed about, but he had never found a reason to put down roots anywhere. At 25, he was starting to wonder if that rootless existence was all there would ever be. He carried another bucket into the kitchen and found Emma preparing lunch. "How is she?" he asked, sleeping. "I checked on her a few minutes ago." Emma looked at him with open curiosity. "It was very kind of you to stay and help, Mr. Dawson. Call me Kieran, and it is no trouble." He set the bucket down. "Is there more I can help with?" "The wood box is getting low, and there are some repairs needed on the back fence. But really, you have done so much already." "I will take care of the wood. Show me where the fence needs fixing." The day passed in honest labor, the kind Kieran was most comfortable with. He chopped wood until the box overflowed, mended 3 broken fence posts, and even helped Emma hang laundry when she mentioned it was usually Catherine's job. Between tasks, he checked on Katherine, who slept through most of the afternoon, her body recovering from the morning's ordeal. When she finally emerged from her room in the early evening, moving slowly but with more color in her cheeks, Kieran was at the kitchen table helping Emma snap green beans for dinner. Katherine stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene with obvious surprise. "You are still here," she said. "Told you I would help out today." Kieran gestured to the chair across from him. "You should sit down. You are probably still feeling weak." Katherine did sit, though her expression suggested she was not used to following orders in her own home. "Emma said you chopped wood and fixed the fence." "And hauled water and helped with lunch and hung laundry," Emma added cheerfully. "He has been wonderful, Kate." A faint blush colored Katherine's cheeks, and Kieran found himself thinking it looked much better than the alarming flush from heat exhaustion. "I do not know what to say. You have done so much, and I do not even know you." "Then we should remedy that." Kieran set down the bean he had been snapping. "I am from Texas originally, though I have spent the last 5 years moving between cattle drives and ranches all over the West. I am heading north to check on some mining property my brother bought, but I am in no particular hurry." "What about you? Have you always lived in Downieville?" Katherine nodded slowly, her fingers playing with the edge of the tablecloth. "Born and raised here. My father was a miner during the rush, one of the lucky ones who actually found gold. He used his earnings to buy this building and start the boarding house. When he died 2 years ago, it fell to Emma and me to keep it going. No other family. Our mother died when Emma was born. It has been just the 3 of us for a long time, and now just the 2 of us." Her voice held old grief, well worn but still present. "The boarding house does well enough, but it is constant work." "Too much work for 2 people, Kieran observed. "We manage." The defensive edge was back. "You collapsed this morning." He kept his voice gentle but did not soften the truth. "That is not managing. That is running yourself into the ground." Katherine looked away, but not before he saw the frustration in her eyes. "What would you have me do? Hire help we cannot afford. Turn away boarders so there is less work. This is our livelihood. I do what I must to keep it going." "I understand that. I do." Kieran leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "But there has to be a balance. What if Emma had been the one to find you with no one else around? What if you had hit your head on the well when you fell?" The color drained from Katherine's face. Clearly she had not thought about what might have happened. Emma made a small, distressed sound. "I am not trying to frighten you," Kieran continued. "I am trying to make you see that you cannot help your sister or keep this place running if you work yourself to death. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help." Silence fell over the kitchen, broken only by the sound of beans dropping into the bowl. Katherine stared at her hands, and Kieran gave her time to process what he had said. He could see the war playing out behind her eyes, pride and practicality battling for dominance. Finally, she looked up at him. "You are right. I know you are right. It is just, I promised my father I would take care of Emma and keep the boarding house going. I do not want to fail him." "You have not failed anyone," Kieran said firmly. "You have kept this place running for 2 years, which is more than most people could have done. But maybe it is time to think about doing things differently." "Like how?" like charging a bit more for room and board, enough to hire someone to help with the heavy work, or taking on one less boarder so there is less to do. Or, he paused, wondering if he was about to overstep, accepting help when it is offered. Catherine's eyes met his and something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. Is that what you are doing? Offering help? I reckon I am. Kieran felt his heart beating faster. My brother's mining claims are not going anywhere. I could stay in Downieville a while, help around here in exchange for room and board, just until you are back on your feet and we figure out a better system. Catherine repeated softly. If you want help, that is. I will not impose where I am not wanted. Emma looked between them with barely concealed excitement. Oh, Kate, say yes. We could use the help, and Kieran has been such a gentleman. Katherine bit her lip, thinking. Kieran could see her working through all the angles, weighing practicality against propriety and pride. He waited, not pushing, letting her come to the decision on her own. All right, she said finally. You can stay. We have a room available on the second floor. In exchange for room and board, you help with the heavy work around here. Is that acceptable? More than acceptable. Kieran felt a smile spread across his face. You have got yourself a deal, Miss Nolan. Katherine, please. If you are going to be living here, we should use first names. Katherine it is. He liked the way her name felt in his mouth, the slight old-fashioned formality of it, and you should call me Kieran. Emma clapped her hands together. This is wonderful. I will go prepare the room right now. She bounced up from the table, leaving Katherine and Kieran alone in the kitchen. Katherine studied him with open curiosity now. Why are you really doing this? You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Kieran considered the question carefully. I have spent 5 years drifting from place to place, never staying anywhere long enough to matter. This morning I saw someone who needed help and I had the ability to provide it. Maybe that is reason enough. Or maybe, he met her eyes steadily, maybe I am tired of drifting. Maybe it is time to see what it feels like to be part of something. Understanding flickered in Katherine's expression. Downieville is not much compared to all the places you have been. Downieville has honest work and good people. That is more than a lot of places can say. He stood, gathering up the bowl of snapped beans. And right now, it has someone who needs help. That is enough for me. Katherine rose as well, steadier on her feet now. She reached out and touched his arm briefly, a gesture of thanks that sent warmth through him. I am glad you happened to ride by this morning, Kieran Dawson. So am I, Katherine Nolan. So am I. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Kieran rose early with the women, hauling water and chopping wood before the heat of the day set in. He made repairs around the boarding house, fixing loose boards on the porch, replacing a cracked window and patching a leak in the roof. The work was satisfying in a way that his previous jobs had never been. There was something deeply fulfilling about seeing immediate improvement, about knowing his efforts directly helped the people around him. Katherine, for her part, proved to be as stubborn about resting as Kieran had suspected. She insisted on working, though Emma and Kieran together managed to convince her to pace herself better and take breaks in the heat of the day. Kieran found himself watching her when he thought she was not looking, noting the way she moved through the boarding house with practiced efficiency, the way she smiled at the boarders and made them feel at home, the way she pushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear when she was concentrating on a task. He was falling for her. The realization came to him one evening as he sat on the back porch, watching her and Emma hang laundry in the cooler evening air. Katherine laughed at something her sister said, her whole face lighting up, and Kieran felt his heart turn over in his chest. He had never believed in love at first sight, had always thought such things were for dime novels and romantic fools. But this feeling of wanting to make her smile, of finding excuses to be near her, of lying awake at night thinking about the sound of her voice, this had to be something close to it. The question was whether she felt anything similar. She was friendly enough, thanking him for his help and sharing meals and conversation, but Katherine kept a certain reserve, a carefulness that suggested she was not ready to trust easily. Kieran could not blame her. She had been managing on her own for 2 years, building walls to protect herself and her sister. Those walls would not come down overnight. 2 weeks after his arrival, Kieran was in the kitchen helping Katherine prepare dinner when she brought up a subject he had been wondering about. "You said you were heading to check on your brother's mining claims. You still plan to do that?" He looked up from the potatoes he was peeling. "Eventually. Why do you ask?" Katherine kept her eyes on the chicken she was cutting up. "I just want to make sure I am not keeping you from your responsibilities. You have been here longer than you planned." "You are not keeping me from anything," Kieran said carefully. "The claims are not going anywhere, and my brother knows I will get there when I get there." "Unless," he paused, his heart sinking, "unless you are trying to tell me it is time for me to move on." "No." The word came out quickly, and Katherine looked as surprised as Kieran felt. She set down her knife and turned to face him fully. "No, that is not what I meant at all. I do not want you to feel obligated to stay." "I do not feel obligated." Kieran set down his own knife and took a step closer. "I stay because I want to be here. Because he hesitated, wondering if he was about to make a fool of himself, because I care about what happens to you and Emma. Because when I think about leaving, something in me resists the idea." Katherine's breath caught. "Kieran, you do not have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I am not asking for anything from you. I just want you to know why I stay, and I will stay as long as you want me here." She looked at him with those green eyes that had haunted his dreams, and he saw uncertainty and longing warring in their depths. "I am not very good at this," she admitted quietly. "At letting people close. After my father died, I had to be strong for Emma. I could not afford to be vulnerable or need anyone." "I know." Kieran reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. Her fingers were rough from work but slender and warm in his. "But you do not have to do everything alone anymore. I am here. And Katherine, I would very much like to see where this goes if you would give me the chance." For a long moment, she simply looked at their joined hands. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, "I would like that too." Joy surged through Kieran, bright and fierce. He squeezed her hand gently. Yeah, Katherine smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes and made her whole face glow. "You are a good man, Kieran Dawson. I think maybe you came into my life exactly when I needed you." "I think maybe I came into your life exactly when I needed you too," he replied. They stood there in the kitchen, hands clasped, something new and fragile and precious growing between them. Emma chose that moment to walk in, took one look at them, and let out a delighted squeal. "Finally." "I have been waiting for you two to figure this out for weeks." Katherine laughed, her cheeks flushing pink, but she did not let go of Kieran's hand. "We are that obvious. You moon at each other constantly," Emma said with the brutal honesty only a younger sister could get away with. "It has been adorable and frustrating in equal measure," Kieran grinned. "Well, no more frustration then. Your sister has agreed to let me court her properly. It is about time." Emma hugged them both, clearly thrilled. "This is wonderful. Oh, wait until the boarders hear." "The boarders do not need to hear anything just yet," Katherine said quickly. "Let us just take this slow, see how things go." But taking things slow proved easier said than done when every day brought them closer together. Kieran found excuses to work near Katherine, whether it was helping her in the kitchen or sitting on the porch while she mended clothes. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future. He told her about the loneliness of the trail, the beauty of a Montana sunrise, the satisfaction of honest work. She told him about growing up in Downieville, about her father's dreams and her own fears, about the weight of responsibility she carried. Their first kiss happened 3 weeks after that conversation in the kitchen. It was evening, and they were sitting on the back porch watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The boarders had all retired to their rooms or headed into town, and Emma had conveniently decided to visit a friend, leaving them alone. "It is beautiful out here," Katherine said softly, her head tilted back to look at the sky. "It is," Kieran agreed, but he was not looking at the stars. He was looking at her, at the way the lamplight from the kitchen window touched her hair with gold, at the peaceful expression on her face. She must have felt his gaze because she turned to look at him. "What?" "I was just thinking how lucky I am," he said honestly. "That I happened to ride through Downieville that particular morning, that I found you when I did, that you let me stay." Katherine shifted closer on the bench. "I am the lucky one. I was so tired, Kieran, so tired of doing everything alone, of pretending I had it all under control. You gave me permission to not have to be strong all the time. You are still the strongest person I know," he said, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand lingered, cupping her cheek. "But even strong people need someone to lean on. Is that what you are? Someone I can lean on. I am whatever you need me to be." The words were barely above a whisper. Katherine leaned into his touch, her eyes falling closed briefly. When she opened them again, he saw his own feelings reflected back at him. "I think I am falling in love with you," she said, the words trembling with vulnerability. "I did not mean to, I did not plan for it, but I am." Kieran felt like all the air had left his lungs. "Katherine," he breathed her name like a prayer. "I am already in love with you. I think I have been since the moment you opened your eyes and I saw the strength in them." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but she met him halfway. Their lips touched softly, tentatively, a question and an answer all at once. Kieran had kissed women before, brief encounters on long trail drives that meant nothing and led nowhere. This was different. This was everything. Katherine's hand came up to rest against his chest, over his heart, and he wondered if she could feel how it raced. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Katherine laughed shakily. "Oh my. Oh my indeed," Kieran agreed, his forehead resting against hers. "I want to do this right, Katherine. I want to court you properly, ask you to marry me when the time is right, build a life with you." "Marry you?" She pulled back enough to meet his eyes, surprise and hope mingling in her expression. "When you are ready. I am not asking now, but I want you to know my intentions are serious. I am not playing at this. I love you and I want forever with you." Tears gathered in Katherine's eyes, but she was smiling. "I never thought I would have this. I thought I would just work and take care of Emma and that would be my life. But now, with you, I can imagine something more." "Then imagine it with me," Kieran urged. "A real partnership. We can run the boarding house together, or we can do something else entirely. Whatever makes you happy." "You make me happy," she said simply. "You being here with me, that is what makes me happy." They kissed again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility. The future stretched out before them, uncertain but bright. And for the first time in years, Katherine let herself hope for something beyond simple survival. The weeks turned into months. Kieran sent word to his brother that he would not be checking on the mining claims after all, that he had found something more valuable than gold in Downieville. Katherine bloomed under his love and support, laughing more freely, working without the desperate edge of exhaustion that had driven her before. Together, they made improvements to the boarding house. Kieran handling the heavy labor while Katherine managed the business side with a sharp mind for numbers. In October, when the Sierra Nevada began showing the first signs of autumn, Kieran asked Katherine to marry him. He did it simply, without fanfare, on the same back porch where they had shared their first kiss. He presented her with a ring he had bought from the jeweler in town, a simple gold band with a small emerald that matched her eyes. "Katherine Nolan, you are the strongest, kindest, most stubborn woman I have ever met. You have made me want to stop drifting and start building something real. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you and making you happy?" Katherine said yes through happy tears, and Emma cheered so loudly from where she had been shamelessly eavesdropping at the window that the entire neighborhood probably heard. They married in November, a small ceremony at the church in town with Emma as maid of honor and one of the boarders, a kind older man named Samuel, standing up as Kieran's best man. Katherine wore a dress she had sewn herself from cream-colored silk, and Kieran wore his best suit, purchased new for the occasion. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Kieran kissed his bride with such tenderness that several women in attendance dabbed at their eyes. The boarding house became truly theirs, partners in every sense of the word. Kieran's name went on the deed alongside Katherine's, and they hung a new sign out front, "Dawson Boarding House." Katherine initially protested, wanting to keep her father's legacy, but Kieran convinced her that they were not erasing the past, simply building on it. "Your father started this place to take care of his family," Kieran pointed out. "We are continuing that tradition. He would be proud." Emma stayed with them, of course, though she began walking out with a young schoolteacher who had moved to town in the spring. Katherine and Kieran watched the courtship with amused approval, remembering their own beginning. The first winter was challenging, as Sierra Nevada winters could be, but they faced it together. When heavy snows blocked the roads and supplies ran low, Kieran's experience surviving harsh conditions on the trail proved invaluable. When a pipe burst and flooded 2 rooms, Katherine's quick thinking and ability to stretch their resources kept the boarding house running. The following spring brought change. Emma announced her engagement to the schoolteacher, a steady young man named Daniel who clearly adored her. Katherine cried happy tears as she helped her sister plan the wedding, grateful that Emma would have the same kind of loving partnership she had found. It was also that spring when Katherine discovered she was expecting their first child. She told Kieran one evening after dinner, pulling him aside to the bedroom they now shared. "I have news," she said, nervous excitement making her voice shake slightly. Kieran took her hands, concerned by her tone. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine. Better than fine. Kieran, I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." For a moment Kieran could only stare at her, the words not quite computing. Then joy exploded through him, so intense it left him breathless. "A baby! We are having a baby," Katherine nodded, laughing at his expression. "In the autumn, the doctor thinks." Kieran swept her up in his arms, spinning her around before remembering her condition and setting her down gently. "This is incredible. You are incredible. A baby." He kissed her thoroughly, pouring all his love and excitement into the gesture. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, Katherine's health carefully monitored by both Kieran and the doctor. She worked as much as Kieran allowed, which was considerably less than she wanted, but she accepted his protectiveness with good humor. They prepared a nursery in a small room next to their bedroom, painting the walls yellow and building a cradle with their own hands. Their son was born in October of 1873, exactly 1 year after Kieran proposed. The birth was long and difficult, testing Kieran's nerves as he paced the hallway while the doctor and midwife attended Katherine. When he finally heard his son's first cry, strong and healthy, Kieran nearly collapsed with relief. He was allowed in to see Katherine, who looked exhausted but radiant holding their baby. "Meet your son," she said softly. Kieran approached almost reverently, looking down at the tiny red-faced creature in Katherine's arms. The baby had stopped crying and was looking around with unfocused eyes, one tiny fist waving in the air. "He is perfect," Kieran breathed. "You are perfect." "What should we name him?" Katherine asked. They had discussed names but never settled on anything. Now, looking at his son, Kieran said, "What about Thomas, after your father?" Fresh tears spilled down Katherine's cheeks. "Really, really. Your father built this place, gave you the foundation that allowed us to meet. It seems right to honor that." "Thomas Dawson," Katherine tried out the name. "I love it." Thomas proved to be a healthy, happy baby who quickly became the center of their world. The boarders spoiled him shamelessly, and Emma, now married and living nearby, visited constantly to play with her nephew. Kieran discovered that fatherhood suited him, finding joy in even the most mundane tasks of caring for his son. As Thomas grew, Katherine and Kieran's boarding house continued to thrive. They hired help, 2 local women who needed work, allowing them to expand their business slightly without overextending themselves. Kieran also began working part-time at a nearby ranch, his skills with horses and cattle still valuable. The extra income allowed them to save money and even make improvements to their own living quarters. On their 2nd anniversary, as they sat on their back porch watching Thomas toddle around the yard under Emma's watchful eye, Katherine leaned against Kieran's shoulder with a contented sigh. "Can you believe it has only been 2 years since we married? It feels like we have always been together." Kieran wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "Best 2 years of my life. Well, technically 3 years since the day I found you at the well." "The day you saved my life," Katherine corrected. "Everything good in my life now traces back to that moment, if you had not come along when you did." "But I did," Kieran interrupted gently. "I do not believe in much, but I believe we were meant to find each other." "Some things are just meant to be." Katherine turned to kiss him softly. "I love you, Kieran Dawson." "I love you too, Katherine Dawson. Today, tomorrow, and all the days after that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their son play, listening to the sounds of the boarding house behind them. Kieran thought about the man he had been 3 years ago, drifting aimlessly from place to place with no real purpose beyond the next job. That man would barely recognize his life now, settled and domestic and deeply, wonderfully happy. He had found what he had not even known he was searching for: a home, a purpose, a love that filled all the empty spaces inside him. And it had all started with a woman collapsing by a well in the August heat, giving a wandering cowboy the chance to be someone's hero. The years that followed brought both challenges and joys, as years always do. There was the winter when influenza swept through Downieville, and they worked tirelessly to keep their boarders healthy. There was the spring when floods damaged part of the building and required extensive repairs. There was the summer when Katherine miscarried a pregnancy at 3 months, leaving them both heartbroken. But there were also triumphs. Thomas grew into a bright, curious boy who loved helping his father with chores and listening to his mother's stories. Emma and Daniel had 2 children of their own, giving Thomas cousins to play with. The boarding house's reputation grew, known throughout the region for its cleanliness, good food, and fair prices. Kieran became respected in the community, serving on the town council and helping mediate disputes. When Thomas was 4 years old, Katherine became pregnant again. This time they were cautious, not announcing the news until she was well into her 2nd trimester. The pregnancy went smoothly, and in the spring of 1878 they welcomed a daughter. She looks just like you, Kieran said in wonder, cradling his daughter carefully. She had Catherine's green eyes and fine features, already showing signs of being a beauty. We should name her after your mother, Katherine suggested. What was her name? Sarah, Kieran said softly. His mother had died when he was young, but he remembered her kindness. Sarah Dawson. Thomas was fascinated by his baby sister, insisting on helping with everything from fetching diapers to singing to her when she cried. Watching his children together, Kieran felt a contentment so profound it almost frightened him. How had he gotten so lucky? What had he done to deserve this life, this family? As if reading his thoughts, Katherine reached for his hand. Stop questioning whether you deserve this. You do. We built this together. How do you always know what I am thinking? Because I know you, she said simply, and because I love you. Their family continued to grow. 2 years after Sarah was born, another son arrived whom they named Henry. Then came another daughter, Grace, completing their family when Kieran was 35 and Katherine 33. The boarding house eventually became too small for their growing family and business needs. In 1885, they made the decision to build an addition, adding more bedrooms upstairs and expanding the kitchen and dining areas. It was an expensive undertaking, requiring them to take out a loan, but Kieran felt confident in their ability to make it work. We have built something solid here, he told Katherine as they reviewed the building plans. Something that will last and provide for our children. This is an investment in our future. Katherine kissed his cheek. I trust you completely. If you think we should do this, then we will. The construction took most of the summer, but when it was finished, they had a boarding house that could accommodate 12 guests comfortably while still maintaining their family's privacy. Business boomed, and within 2 years they had paid off the loan. Thomas, now 12, had started helping around the boarding house in earnest, learning the business from his parents. He had inherited Kieran's steady temperament and Katherine's head for numbers, showing promise as someone who could eventually take over the family business. Sarah, at 7, was the social one, chatting with boarders and making everyone feel welcome. Henry and Grace were still small, but already showing their own distinct personalities. On the anniversary of the day Kieran found Katherine at the well, now marked every year as a day of celebration in the Dawson household, they gathered the whole family for a special dinner. Emma and Daniel came with their children, now teenagers themselves. The boarding house dining room was full of laughter, love, and the comfortable chaos of a large extended family. After dinner, as the sun set behind the mountains, Kieran pulled Katherine aside to the back porch, their special place for important conversations. 15 years, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they looked out at the property they had built together. 15 years since I found you unconscious by that well. Katherine leaned back against him, her hands covering his where they rested on her waist. 15 years since you saved my life and changed it forever. We changed each other's lives, Kieran corrected. I was just drifting before you. You gave me purpose, a home, a reason to stay in one place. You gave me everything. She turned in his arms to face him. There were fine lines around her eyes now, threads of silver in her dark blonde hair, but to Kieran she was as beautiful as the day he met her. More so, because now he knew every facet of her character, every strength and vulnerability. We have had a good life, Katherine said. A really good life. 4 beautiful children, a successful business, respect in our community. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to make sure it is all real. It is real, and it is ours. Kieran kissed her forehead gently. And we are not done yet. We have many more years ahead of us, many more memories to make. I look forward to every one of them, Katherine said. As long as I am with you. Their children's voices drifted out from inside, laughing at something one of their cousins said. Emma appeared in the doorway, smiled at seeing them together, and closed the door again to give them privacy. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had ridden past that morning instead of stopping?" Katherine asked quietly. Kieran considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. I like to think I would have circled back eventually, that some instinct would have told me I was missing something important. But honestly, I am just grateful I will never have to know. I did stop. I did find you, and every good thing in my life has come from that moment." "Mine too," Katherine whispered. "Every single good thing." They stood together in the gathering darkness, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting. The boarding house behind them was full of life and light, their children safe and loved, their future secure. It was everything neither of them had dared to dream of in those early days when Katherine was just trying to survive, and Kieran was searching for something he could not name. As stars began appearing in the sky above Downieville, Kieran held his wife close and thought about fate, chance, and the incredible power of being in the right place at the right time. He had saved Katherine's life that hot August morning, but in truth, she had saved his too. She had given him a home, a purpose, a love that filled all the empty spaces inside him. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. Thomas eventually did take over much of the daily operation of the boarding house, proving himself as capable as his parents had been. He married a kind local girl named Margaret, and they gave Kieran and Katherine their first grandchildren. Sarah became a school teacher like her uncle Daniel, beloved by her students. Henry showed an aptitude for woodworking and began making furniture that was sought after throughout the region. Grace, the baby, surprised everyone by announcing she wanted to study medicine in San Francisco. Katherine and Kieran moved into a comfortable semi-retirement, still involved in the boarding house but no longer carrying the daily burden of running it. They spent their mornings on the back porch with coffee, their afternoons visiting grandchildren, their evenings reading by the fire. It was a peaceful life, earned through years of hard work and devotion. On their 30th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren and half the town of Downieville who had come to celebrate with them, Katherine stood to make a toast. 30 years ago, I married the man who saved my life. But more than that, I married my best friend, my partner, the father of my children and the love of my life. Kieran Dawson, you have given me 3 decades of happiness. You have been my rock, my comfort, my joy. Everything good in my life I share with you. Here is to 30 more years, my love. Kieran rose, his eyes suspiciously bright, and pulled her into a kiss that made their grandchildren giggle and their adult children roll their eyes affectionately. When he finally released her, he raised his own glass. To Katherine, the strongest woman I know. Thank you for letting a drifting cowboy into your life and your heart. Thank you for building this life with me. I love you more today than I did 30 years ago, which I would not have thought possible. Here is to forever. To forever, the assembled crowd echoed, and the party continued late into the night. As they finally climbed the stairs to their bedroom in the small hours of the morning, Kieran took Katherine's hand and helped her navigate the familiar steps. They had climbed these stairs thousands of times over the years, but he still felt the need to steady her, to be her support. In their room, Katherine sat at her dressing table to take down her hair while Kieran changed into his nightshirt. They had performed this ritual countless times, comfortable in the easy intimacy of long marriage. "Did you enjoy the party?" Katherine asked, watching him in the mirror. "I did, though I think I enjoyed watching you enjoy it even more." Kieran came to stand behind her, helping remove the pins from her hair. "You looked beautiful tonight. You look beautiful every night." Katherine laughed softly. "We are old now, Kieran. I have gray hair and wrinkles. And I think you are more beautiful now than the day I met you," he said firmly. "Every gray hair represents a year we have spent together. Every wrinkle comes from smiling at our children. You wear our life together on your face, and it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." She reached up to clasp his hand, bringing it to her lips for a kiss. "How did I get so lucky?" "I ask myself the same thing every day." They climbed into bed together, Katherine settling into the curve of Kieran's body as naturally as breathing. This was home, this closeness, this absolute certainty that they belonged together. "Kieran," Katherine said softly into the darkness. "Thank you for stopping that day at the well. Thank you for caring enough about a stranger to help. Thank you for staying. Thank you for loving me." Kieran tightened his arms around her. "I would do it all again in a heartbeat, every single moment." "So would I," Katherine whispered. "So would I." They drifted off to sleep together, as they had for 30 years and would for many more to come. Outside, the town of Downieville slept peacefully under the stars. Inside the boarding house, their family was safe and happy. And in their bed, two people who had found each other when they needed it most held each other close, grateful for every moment they had been given. The story of Katherine and Kieran Dawson became something of a legend in Downieville, the kind older residents told their grandchildren. The tale of the cowboy who saved the boarding house keeper and stayed to build a life with her, creating a family and business that thrived for generations. It was a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from being in the right place at the right time, from having the courage to stop and help, from opening your heart to possibility. Years later, when both Kieran and Katherine had passed peacefully into old age, surrounded by children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren, the boarding house remained in the family. Thomas's son ran it, maintaining the high standards his grandparents had established. The same back porch where Kieran and Katherine had shared so many important moments became a place where new generations made their own memories. The well where Katherine had collapsed remained as well, now covered and fitted with a proper pump mechanism. But everyone in the family knew its significance. It was where their story had begun, where a moment of crisis had led to a lifetime of love. And if you visited Downieville and happened to stay at the Dawson boarding house, you might hear the story of how it all started. You might sit on that same back porch as evening fell and imagine a hot August day in 1872, when a cowboy riding through town saw a woman in distress and made the choice to stop. You might think about how one moment of kindness, one decision to help instead of pass by, had rippled forward through time to create something lasting and beautiful. Love stories like Katherine and Kieran's do not happen by accident. They happen because two people make the daily choice to show up, to work hard, to forgive and support and cherish each other through everything life throws their way. They happen because someone is brave enough to be vulnerable, to admit they need help, to open their heart to another person. They happen because love is not just a feeling but an action, a commitment renewed every single day. The Dawson family prospered for generations, always remembering the legacy of the couple who had started it all. They told the story at weddings and anniversaries, at family gatherings and quiet moments. They told it so their children would understand that love was worth working for, that building something lasting required patience and dedication, and unwavering commitment. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, Kieran and Katherine Dawson watched over their descendants with pride and joy, knowing that the love they had built together continued to ripple outward, touching lives they would never know, creating joy they would never see, but feeling it all the same in whatever corner of eternity they now occupied. Their story was complete, a circle closed, a life well lived together. From the moment a drifting cowboy found an unconscious woman by a well to the final peaceful days they spent holding hands on their beloved back porch, they had built something beautiful. They had created a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone. Proof that sometimes the most important decision you can make is simply to stop and help someone in need, because you never know where that one act of kindness might lead.